Very good evening to all the loving and enthusiasts who participate today to our very first session organized by First Community of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. So first of all, I would like to warmly welcome all of you to the our first session. Today, three experts will talk about Angular, React Library, and Vue frameworks. Also, all of you have the opportunity to learn, select the best possibilities, and apply them. Today, we invited three young experts in the industry to share their knowledge and experience with you. In the first part of this session, Mr. Sajeetharan Sinnathurai from Microsoft Sri Lanka will talk about Angular front-end framework. Second, Mr. Danushka Chandana of Facebook Developer Circle Colombo will be ready to talk about the React library. The wave session will be conducted by Mr. Kasun Vitanage from Mozilla Sri Lanka. So once again, I'd like to pleasurely welcome you to attendance of this session and good luck to everyone. Thank you so much. So Hirshan, it's over to you now.
Good evening, Amasha, and thank you very much for your cooperation. As you said, today is the very first event of the FOSS community of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Unfortunately, due to this pandemic situation, we have to meet you all like this in a virtual room. But you don't need to get upset because a fantastic speaker panel is waiting to share their invaluable knowledge and experience with you all. We have already sent you three separate links along with your confirmation email for you to ask questions. Please use those three links separately to publish your questions. If you can't find them now, those links will be appeared soon in the Zoom chat sessions also. You know, it's all about learning, selecting the best possibility and applying. So why am I wasting your time anymore? Let me introduce the first keynote speaker, Sajeetharan Sinnathurai from Microsoft Sri Lanka. Now, I hope everything has got ready for the session. Sajeetharan, over to you now.
Hey, thanks a lot. Let me go ahead and share the screen. All right. I hope you can see the screen. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining on a weekend. I know it's a busy Sunday, right? Good evening, everyone. And I was hearing from the organizers that this event has got an overwhelming response. I hope all of you are staying safe. Can you hear? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Sajeetharan Sinnathurai, your screen is not visible for us.
All right. I forgot to share. Yeah. Hope you can see it now.
Yeah, now it's visible now.
All right. Yes, thanks again for joining. I hope all of you are staying safe and doing good. First of all, kudos to the organizers for doing something like this, right? Even during the pandemic time, I know the effort that you have to put into. I have seen more than 100 plus participants in this call, so that's a great effort. Kudos to the organizers. All right, today I will be talking one of the $1 million questions among the web developers, which is around choosing the right front-end framework, right? This talk is more around what is Angular and what are its important concepts and how does Angular ecosystem looks like, and what are the tips for like front-end developers that you can utilize in your development environments and things like that. I heard most of you are in university, so that you can grab something from this session and then apply in your daily projects and things like that. So I will share some of my journey as well when it comes to Angular and how contributing to Angular has helped me to change my career path. I think that is one of the core concept as a beginner that you need to have in mind, how contributing back to the community would help you to achieve something in your career. I will cover some aspects on that as well. At the end of the talk, I will show a demo on how you can build a real-time applications with few steps with front-end frameworks like Angular. Also, you could access the slide, so which is I think you can access in live because this is used in slides.com so that you can access even now with the URL. All right. Some of the content that I will be delivering might be a duplicate for you because most of you might have attended my previous sessions, which I have done in the past. This is exactly my 25th session on Angular. I have done most basic sessions, so some of the content might be duplicating. Please, adjust with that. I wanted to keep this session interactive. Feel free to ask questions in the chat and you can unmute yourself, and what are the things that you want to share with others, feel free to do that in this chat, right? You don't have to necessarily keep it at the end. Yes, we have a panel discussion, but feel free to put in the chat whatever comes in mind. um, Okay, I hope some of you might have already known me, but I prepare this slide in all the talks that I do, right, in order to do some marketing. Most of you might have known about me, but for those who don't know about me, web development is my passion. So I have 10 years of experience when it comes to software development, and right now I'm working as a cloud solution architect. So I work for Microsoft APAC team. Based in Sri Lanka. I support partners in multi countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, including Sri Lanka and Vietnam. So we help the partners or the software vendors, right? If you take companies like independent software vendors who are building softwares, to help them to architect, consult them to build the right architecture, and help them to build on Microsoft technologies and even open source technologies. So that's my day-to-day job. But apart from that, I'm also a developer. I love to contribute back to the community. So you can see in all the mediums, especially on Stack Overflow, Twitter, LinkedIn, I'm quite active there. So if you want to discuss something, you can always feel free to reach out to me using the DM. Um, or you can discuss anything about cloud or any technology that you want to talk about. When it comes to recognitions, I think most of you might have heard I was a GD from Sri Lanka and also former MVP. And recently, I supported two of the books on Angular, especially with the publications like Packet.com. And also, I recently awarded as the top educator in Hackathon. Right. When it comes to some of the uh, developer is being social, right? That is one of the fact that you need to have. So you need to interact with others as much as possible, and also make network with others. So you can reach out to me using this GitHub URL or anything. And then these are some of the communities that we run, that I support in Sri Lanka. So you can see this meme group. People call this as meme group, which is Stack Overflow Sri Lanka. But the motive is to get more developers as possible as soon as possible, and then help them to share their ideas and share their work that they are doing to the community. And the NG Sri Lanka, since I been working with Angular for a long time, this is one of the mission that I had in mind. So we executed the first conference last year. Hopefully we will continue that in the mute myself. So there are other few communities which I run. Being a Microsoft employee, we run nearly 10 communities. So if you want to contribute, you can reach out to me at any time. All right, let's dive into the session, right? I saw this post on Facebook. Most of the developers were sharing this particular flyer on Facebook when you announced this event, and some of them were arguing whether it's going to be a war between different frameworks. Absolutely not, right? So this is again, I think Vimukti, you have shared with the right intention, saying that let's learn and contribute to the open source platform together. I think being a developer, that's what it's all about, right? It's not about fighting about technology. It's not about identifying what are the faults in one of the other vendor, or what are the faults in different frameworks and things like that. So this is certainly to gain your knowledge and not to identify or compare the faults in each of the technology. Each framework is a great thing, right? So each framework is being used by some of the developers because it serves some purpose. So you need to understand the difference. Frameworks may come and go. In the back then when I was a developer, we used to have few frameworks, but those are not alive these days, right? So frameworks may come and go, but concepts remain the same. So if you're a JavaScript developer, you need to know the concepts thoroughly. You don't have to worry much about what framework is there to help things. So one of the advantage that frameworks gives is that it saves a lot of time. So if you are a developer, if you want to build something quickly, you can use some framework to get something done quickly. And then it increases the security. So there are integrations that you can do with framework, so that you will provide more secured environment for your end users. And then it enables you to achieve more features. So this is where frameworks comes into place. I think most of the frameworks does these features. If you are a true programmer, you should basically know the the core concepts of JavaScript, and the rest of the things, the features that comes with frameworks, you will eventually start to use whenever you are working with those frameworks. Yes, I would like to give a warning to those audience who are listening to this talk. This piece of talk is for strictly for beginners. If you are an expert on Angular or any other framework, I mean, if you're expert on Angular, probably I won't be covering deep dive topics, but I will be covering only for the right audience that we targeted through this event, who are the beginners, right? So hopefully this will be a good session for you. But if you feel that this session is boring or somewhere you feel that you need more deep dive session, you can watch the LPL, which is happening these days. I think there is a semi-final which I'm intended to watch after 2 hours, right? You can go ahead and watch this LPL. Let's get reactive with Angular. I think, all right, before I dive into the session, I wanted to demonstrate the application that I wanted to show today. Actually, it's the same application which I demonstrated in the one of the session that I did yesterday. But first of all, let me see how many developers who know about these frameworks, right? You can access this particular application, which is live. Again, this is a real-time application, but I have not implemented the real-time. But you just need to go to this URL and vote for the framework that you are known of. It's not about which is the popular framework. It's not about which is the famous framework or which is suitable for you. It's about which framework that you are aware of. So if you know Angular before, vote for Angular. If you know React, if you know Vue, just vote for this, right? I just want to get the genuine opinion of the audience that we have today. Just vote it genuinely, right? I will demonstrate how I have built this application at the end of this session. But yes, if you want to see how I build this application end to end, you can watch this URL, which you can look out this URL, which I did the session yesterday. Yes, this is a real-time application which I use Signaler, and then I used Azure for deployment. But Angular is the front-end application which you can access from mobile as well as browser. So just go ahead and vote. Let me see if any votes that I have been received, unless if there is a bug. So there is one who have already voted for React, but just go ahead and vote. We will see the results at the end of the session. Okay. So last week, as most of you know, if you're a JavaScript developers, we celebrated the 25th years of JavaScript, right? Yes, if I have to say, it's the most successful, language, and also the most misunderstood language amongst developers. So if you're a web developer, you should really know this. About the history of web frameworks and how things have evolved. So back in 2006, when I started programming as a developer, we used to have one language that was JavaScript. So if I have to build something, even a simple portfolio, which you can spin up an Angular application, and then you just need to configure the routing, which you can do it in like 5 to 10 minutes. But I took nearly 2 weeks to get that done, right? To build my portfolio back in 2006 using JavaScript. But if you ask someone to do it right now, they would be able to do it within a quick time, right? You could simply compare 1,100 frameworks which are available in order to build these things quickly, right? So we are going to see what are the benefits that you get by choosing these frameworks. It's not to compare and see which framework is the best. This is one of the reading that I found. You could simply assume if the humans are evolved at the rate of JavaScript frameworks that evolved, then the doctors would have to search in Google to identify the organs, right? I think this is happening in these days because we are yet to find a vaccine for COVID. Still doctors are because of the fact that it comes in different forms. So JavaScript you can compare in the similar way, and you can see how frameworks have evolved over the period of nearly 25 years. It's again one of the analogy that you can use is using 1100 and then iPhone Pro 12, which comes with different flavors, and then you can configure, you can make a call, you can do a video call, and then you can play games and things like that. So it's bundled together as a platform for to do different things, right? That is what framework does, but the core concepts remains the same. So if I have to talk about the history of my journey, or how I have seen the JavaScript frameworks evolving over the years, these are the frameworks that I have worked with in the past, and I will tell you why I choose Angular as my favorite one as we progress. It's not about I'm not saying it's the best framework, but I chose that as a favorite framework because of some reasons which I will be showing in the coming slides. It's purely because of the love I had on Angular. It was the first framework that I started using as a developer back in 2010, which was AngularJS. I'm not saying that Angular and AngularJS are same, but it has a similar background, right? It helped me to learn certain concepts, and I didn't want to break up with Angular. So I was continuously exploring the new features, and I wanted to be expert on Angular. That's the reason I started, exploring different things. If you look back in 2009, Miss Hervey from Google, Google team invented the framework was AngularJS, and it was very famous back in 2010, right? And it certainly killed most of the frameworks which was existing at that time. If you heard about Backbone.js, if you heard about Knockout.js, those are kind of very famous frameworks. Those, at the time. But then when Angular evolved, because it has the support of MVC, model view controller, and then you can do the two-way data binding. So whenever you update a view or whenever you update the model, the view gets updated. So these benefits were not exist at the time back in 2010. And then when you are building single page application, if you are not familiar with single page application, I hope most of you might be accessing Facebook, right? So when you go to Facebook, and if you search for a girl's name or a friend's name, and if you go to her profile and then see the timeline, it doesn't redirect back to the server and then get back the response, right? You won't be able to see the transition that's happening, but it's flawless, right? That's what single page application provides. It doesn't post back to the server and get the response. You will be able to route the pages based on the URL parameters. So AngularJS is one of the earliest frameworks that had this feature, and that's the reason most of them choose AngularJS. And then if you see in 2013, the announcement of React came in, right? React came into the picture, which is sort of a component-based view library. I think Danushka will cover more in detail about what is React and then how you can get started with React. But it was started in 2013. And again, in 2014, React Native, I think one of the cool innovations in the technology till now, right? Building a native mobile applications. Personally, I love React Native because it supports various lot of features. So uh, if you are building mobile applications, you should be a fan of this one. And again, in 2014, there is a framework which had a huge rise, which is a Vue, and one of the earliest framework to learn, one of the easiest framework to learn if you are a beginner compared among these three. I'm not saying from the perspective of features, but if you are a beginner, I think Vue.js, according to my view, right? And it's developer friendly because it has tons of useful libraries and a great tool set. I hope Kasun will go in deep dive about Vue.js and the tool sets that you have. You can hear more in the session that will be covered by him. And then in 2016, uh, Angular version 2 came, right, which is called as Angular till now. So one of the misconception among many developers is that they think AngularJS and Angular are the same, but actually not, right? Angular has been re-implemented. Not It's not an evolution of AngularJS. Even the support of AngularJS has been stopped till I think back in 2018. There are no support provided on AngularJS. There is no new features developed. Uh, it's the simple reason is that Angular is very capable of providing features in terms of performance, toolings, and then component based development. I was just kidding, right? so the reason they invented Angular is not because of it's purely because of the features that it provides support of, performance, tooling, and component based designs. As of now, Angular is 11 times faster than AngularJS, and some of the concepts such as ng model, ng app, and then you can see ng controller has been completely removed and has been entirely rewritten. Hope you got the understanding of what is the difference between AngularJS and Angular. Let me ask a question to see if you guys are actively listening, right? What is the latest version of Angular? You can type in the chat. So if I get one answer, I will assume that you guys are listening. Let me go ahead and see. Okay, the chat is here. Okay, there are 7 chats. Oh, yeah, I think some of you have answered it correct, and some of you said 10. For those who said can't vote, you just have to probably refresh. Probably there could be some course issues. Yeah, I hope most of you got the answer right. It's Angular 11, right, which was released last month. And there were certain features that was released, which I will be covering in the demo that I shown. So, and there, as you know, Angular releases, core version at the end of 6 months, right? And thereafter, after Angular 2, which is Angular, uh, every 6 months there is a new version of Angular being released. Uh, I would say 2017, the release of Angular 4 was my highlighting part of my career because I was experimenting some of the earlier features and provided feedback to the Angular team on improving some areas, including the HTTP client. If you are familiar with, till now, Angular 9 and Angular 4 are the best releases that I have seen in the past compared to other releases personally, right? Each of these releases has a major feature, and you could see in the slide, right? Angular 4 was mainly focused on providing stable and performant support, where Angular 5 is providing a smaller and faster and easier framework for everyone to build things quickly. And then with the recent Angular version 10, Angular 11, you can see the support of TypeScript 4 and then Webpack 5, whereas Ivy, which is the new rendering engine, which was released in Angular 9. So these are some of the highlighting features that evolved with Angular over a period of time. I think, all right, I talked about the history of JavaScript and Angular timeline. Let me dive into what is Angular and why Angular for beginners. Yes, are you a hero? Then you should start building applications using Angular, right? I'm just kidding. You can use any of the framework, and if it serves your purpose, right? It's just a framework that provides a whole ecosystem to build the application, and you can scale the application as you want. I have been an Angular JS developer for 4 years, and then moved into Angular till now. But the transition and the learning curve is something high. If you are choosing Angular as a framework, it's something that you need to know. Angular is providing a lot of features and a lot of components tool set. You need to learn each of them in order to be an expert. So I think that is one of the frustrating thing, where you have releases every 6 months and there are a lot of things happening around Angular, which makes the developers get frustrated. So learning curve is high if you are choosing Angular as the framework that you want to explore. For beginners, Angular is a framework for building web application, which is written on TypeScript, the programming language invented by Microsoft, and it's open source, right? One of the reason you should embrace Angular is that it shows the openness of the community developers, where Angular was founded by Google, and then it's written on TypeScript, which was founded by Microsoft, and then Microsoft is internally using applications built on top of Angular. It's actually embracing the value of the technology. I think that should be the purpose of this event as well. It's not to compare different frameworks. It's to identify the features of each of these frameworks provide, and then how you can combine those frameworks in order to serve your end users. So this is what needed in terms of modern development. There can be war in terms of business, right? If you are a business user, then definitely you need to consider the revenue that you make out of these frameworks. But if you are a developer, you should never compare the frameworks against each other. So Angular as a framework provide these, right? I will not dive into detail, but I'm sure most of the developers are aware of these things. Another key thing is that before comparing anything, you need to experience it personally by building applications or exploring the features. Angular is a platform for integrated development. If you want to plug in new capabilities, you could just add them and then build features around it. When you say batteries included, it has all the developer tools embedded, starting from Angular CLI to build your application, and then you can deploy your application to production, and then you can use Source Map Explorer to do the end-to-end analysis. So if you're coming from a developer background with the sounded knowledge on WOP concepts, which I don't have, but if you know MVC concepts, it is very easy to learn Angular, because it is built on TypeScript. When you talk about these features, one of the main concepts including HTTP client, which is enabling the developers to make CRUD operations by calling this, any of the third-party API or any of the API that you have as a backend, and then you can implement the features that you want. Forms is another feature which developers love. I think especially with Angular, the support has been great in terms of forms, right? So if you're building enterprise applications, this is one of the key factor, right? Forms, you need to have a common standard form. So it is easy to use it. I mean, there are two ways of form supported. One is the template driven forms and the, reactive form. So each of these type have different features which you can explore. I will not dive into these details, but and then things like server rendering is one of the unique feature that Angular provides. So Angular Universal is all about server-side rendering that you can do at the initial page load, so that you don't have to wait for the users to take much amount of time when they are loading the applications. So it pushes the initial loading of the Angular application to the server for a improved performance. So if you're building serverless applications, serverless rendering could be added advantage uh, in order to bring what you have at the back end to the front end use. And when you look at the core concepts, things like how Angular is structured, I think that is one of the key feature that Angular has. It makes it easier for developers to have the data binding and also to do the testing, and then the dependency injection, right? You can inject any component that you need, and I mean any features that you need using libraries, third-party APIs, and things like that. So these are some of the great features that Angular provides. If you are not aware, you can go ahead and explore these features, right? The second factor is that Angular as a framework, I explained, but it's also a platform, right? If you have seen the latest version of Angular 11, it came with the TypeScript 4 support, and then Webpack support with the features including like chaining syntax, right? This is one of the latest features that you can explore in Angular. And also Ivy makes your development life easier. It makes you to debug the application in live. If you're getting an error saying, if you are having a component name Saji, and then if Saji is not a known element, those days I have to spend nearly 4 days to find the root cause of the error. But you can do that with the real-time debugging with the Ivy, right? That is one of the greatest feature that Angular added. And then it has improved 30 to 40% of the performance in terms of bundle size, which has evolved over a period of time. And then language service is another feature. If you are embedding localization support, you can use a language service. And then Angular team is closely working with StackBlitz. I don't know how many of you are familiar with StackBlitz, but StackBlitz is one of the editor that you can use as like a Visual Studio Code editor. You can use it as a code editor in order to build quick samples and things like that. I think Angular is one of the earliest framework that is supported by StackBlitz. And then PWA, Progressive Web Apps, is one of the features that you can build. I think this is one of my favorite topics. It uses the service worker at the background, that runs in the browser and then manages the caching for your application, so that your end users can work offline mode, right? I think that is a great feature that you can provide to the end users. And then if you want to code and check your code, whether it has a proper coding standard, then you can use something like CodeLyzer to analyze the coding standards, right? And if you want to, if you are a mobile developer who want to build hybrid application, I think Angular and Ionic goes hand in hand. So you can start building, iOS and Android applications using Ionic. And then things like Angular Builder to create your custom builders. And then you can use Angular libraries to create some of the common libraries. And then you can use things like schematics in order to make the development faster, so that if you're working in a large team where you have 50 developers or hundreds of developers, you don't have to repeat things, right? I think that is one of the cool feature that is enabled by Angular CLI team, to have something standard for all the developers, so that each of the developer won't commit any mistake. So Angular as a platform provides multi capabilities, which makes the front end developer life easier. And then finally, Angular as ecosystem. I think being a framework, Angular has embraced over a period of time, right? Back in, I think, since 2015. One of the important factor is the strength of the Angular community. I think which is having more support in terms of open source developers. I think even other frameworks has, but in terms of community support, there have been huge, tremendous support from the community when it comes to Angular, right? Angular team itself comprises of core team members, which is around 40 to 50 developers, and then they have 100 GDs, 130 as of now, right? Google developer experts. Since I think, like me, people who are supporting other developers in order to consult them, in order to help them to build the right structured application. So we have more than 100 plus GDs, and then we have 800 plus communities like NG Sri Lanka, and then you have different meetups which are organized by different community members. And then you can see on GitHub, it has 69,000 contributors. So Angular is I mean, supported hugely by the developers from the community, so that it has been evolved over a period of time. And I think you can compare the growth, right? It has been evolving since 2015. So this is one of the greatest strength of Angular. And if you want to see what are the projects, I told about Google is building more than 600 plus applications on Angular, and even with Microsoft, most of the Xbox applications are built on Angular, and then Adobe is using Angular. So you can explore what are the applications built on Angular using madewithangular.com. Let's see into some of the core concepts of Angular, right? I think this is one of the important thing that you need to have when you are building things on Angular. I think this example I have given many times, but let me repeat it again. These are the core concepts of Angular if you are starting on Angular, right? You can you can remember this term. Mahela and Sangha are the certified professional developers. Obviously, they are not developers, but they are cricketers. But in order to, remember, these are the core 5 concepts or building blocks of Angular if you're starting on Angular. Starting with modules, services, pipes, components, directives, and then dependency injection. So if I have to explain in the context of cricket, I know most of you are a fan of cricket. So let me put this way, right? Consider Sri Lankan team, which comprises of many team players, right? So you can consider team as the module, which comprises of many players. Players can be considered as a component, which is being viewed by the viewers, right? So whenever plays some shots, which can be viewed by viewers. So each of the players can be considered as a component, and then you could think of each player how the way they perform, whether they could be a bowler or a batsman. Those attributes define the player's capabilities, right? You can think of directives. It interpolates or manipulates the element in a way that user can easily understand. So you can relate the bowling capability or batting capabilities with directives. And then pipes is something that you can think of franchise that they play for, right? Say if you take Sangha, he was playing for Kings 11 Punjab, and then he was playing for Melbourne's, in the BBL, right? So you can think of franchise as the attributes that define the players, right? If you want to format a data in the way you need, say Sangha can play, wear a jersey of Sri Lankan team and also Punjab team, and also Big Bash League, I think the Melbourne's team, right? So it defines the player in different forms by the jersey that he wears. So you can use pipes to format the data in the way you want. So if you are rendering a form, if you want to format particular date in the format you need, right? Say if you want to have the date in front, then you can use pipes, which is provided by Angular. And then services is one of the important concepts that you need to understand. You can think of physios and then the water boys who are providing, water. And then whenever a player is down, they are helping the players to perform in the way they want, right? So they are orchestrating things. So they are bringing different things from different places in order to make the player perform better, right? So you can think services as a way to communicate uh, from different places and then fetch your data, and then the player plays according to the skills and to the level that he wanted to perform, right? So services is a way to communicate and get things from different places. You can imagine services as the same way in Angular. And then dependency injection is passing dependency to other projects, or you can think of passing services as a dependency to your component. I talked about implementing say if you want to display the score in the page, then you need to call the cricinfo API or something, right? Then you will call that API, and then you need to call a particular service, right? So inject that particular service or a component that you want to use in this particular module. So module can be many, right? So you can take off a Sri Lankan team, Indian team, or even if you take LPL, there are 5 teams, right? So you can think of each team as a module, and then each players as the components, and then the same way explain. I hope you got the basic concepts. I think if you understand this particular 5 concepts, the purpose of this session is fulfilled. I can happily end this session with this particular slide. But let me go ahead and explain some of the concepts that you need to understand. So this is how the typical Angular app structure would look like. You can think of this is how, when you put in Angular CLI, ng new, and then what is the application that you want to build. This is a template that Angular CLI will provide, right? So you can see things like, application source, where you will have your application, the logic part of your application. So you can think of these two as components, where you have, this is one of the application that I built in the last demo, where I wanted to generate a meme. So it comprises of 2 components, right? One is to upload the photo, and the other component is to make a meme. So you can see that the components would fall under application, and then index.html is the place where you are bootstrapping the application. Whenever you are bootstrapping, it will load some of the dependencies, and then whatever the required polyfills that you need from other vendors and things like that, right? Whatever the vendors files that you are referring in the configuration files, right? And then configuration is the place where you would provide TypeScript config, and then npm packages, and then whatever the configuration that you want to have for your environment. So these are the places where you provide configuration. And then Angular JSON is the place where you have information about the projects and the workspace that you're working on. I don't have to go in detail since I explained what is the module. It is the one of the building block of Angular application. It comprises the components, the services, and whatever the providers, pipes, or whatever the other things that you want to inject. So this is how the typical module would look like. And then you can see what are the components you use, and then what are the different modules that you want to inject. All this will belong to the module. And then component is the basic structure of an Angular application. So without components, there won't be an Angular application. So this is a key element that you need to define. You can have n number of components in application. That is up to the developer to choose, but make sure your component doesn't go beyond 300 lines. That is one of the key things that you need to note. So it will certainly have selector, which is used to identify the component, and then it will have the HTML view, and also the styles that you need to have in your application. And this is what I mentioned, the dependency injection, where you injecting the user service in order to fetch the user details, right? So this is one of the core thing that you need to understand. And directives, it's basically used to adjust or alter the appearance of an element. So directives comes in 2 forms, right? One is the structural directive, which you can use to manipulate DOM elements. Say if you want to repeat some data on the view, then you can use ng4. If you want to compare, if you want to perform the same ng if else context, then you can use the ng if. And then attribute directives are mainly used for styling purpose. So you can use ng style, ng class, and things like. And then pipes is another service that filters the data. So as I explained, if you want to format data, if you want to manipulate data in the way that users want or your customers want, then you can use pipes, right? So here I'm using the date pipe, or you can use things like uppercase in order to visualize it in the uppercase format. So there are built-in pipes like date pipe, uppercase pipes, lowercase pipe, currency pipes, and etc. You can explore. So service is one of the core concepts that you need to understand. I explained this earlier. It encapsulates some sort of functionality, and it provides to the component, right? So it contains the business logic and the application logic bounded together. So whenever you want to send a HTTP request to a backend server, you need to communicate through the service. So components always communicate through the services. So you can invoke a web API and then use observable to visualize in your application or the component. So components tightly depend on the services they consume, which you need to understand before building the component. And then one of the key factors is the data binding, right? So I think most of you are familiar with data binding. So it provides two-way data binding. Whenever you bind the model, it gets reflected in the view. So another feature is that routing, right? I talked about single page application. I think routing is one of the interesting feature that most of the frameworks provide. It helps to configure where you want to direct the user without hard coding the routes, right? One example that I mentioned about the application, the Facebook application, which if I have to, talk about one of the application that I built when I was a developer back in 2010, I have to manually configure the code, or manually write the code for each of the navigation, which is, I think, most of the developers might have done if you are a jQuery user or a ASP.NET user back in 2000s, right? Where page gets refreshed every time. So that is one of the bad thing that you need to avoid. So uh, the whole understanding is that whenever you put the route as home, it will load the home page. Whenever you use the users, it will load the component users. So that's the whole understanding. But Angular router provides certain features. So you can have the URL component mesh mapping. So whenever you put home, it will load the home component, and then you can guard and resolve. So one of the features is that if you want to provide based on the roles and access that each of the user has when they authenticate, you can restrict the user to access certain pages based on the access that they have using the guard and the resolve. And then lazy loading is one of the important feature that you need to have in a web application, which provides a way to initially load the components or the views beforehand, and then it will, whenever user access this particular module, it will load that particular module, or whenever user access the view, it will load that. So there is a certain amount of time which is reduced in order to improve the performance of the application. Again, this is simple. So you have to understand how you define routes. So this is how you define routes. Whenever you say home, you need to load the component home, right? And then this has to be always lost. I think this is one of the frequent mistake that I have done in the past. So whenever you are putting a not found URL, you need to put it at the last. This is how a routing module would look like. uh, and I think I talked about the core components or the core features of Angular. Let's go ahead and explore what are the tools and libraries that you should be aware of, right? So one of the things is Angular CLI. It provides a way to scaffold your Angular application, generate the code, or if you want to debug, test, deploy, you can use these commands, right? If you want to build a new application, you can use. If you want to build a new service, ng service, and then you can pass the service. And then if you want to build a component, you can use those commands. And this is one of the other extension that you can utilize in order to enable the debugging. I think with the Ivy, we are providing the native debugging, but this is one of the tool that you can leverage to enable debugging, right? You can go and explore. And then Angular mobile toolkit is another cool feature that you can go and explore, which supports building mobile applications such as PWS, Progressive Web Application, in the support of service workers. So you can go and explore. So I have talked about the features and how Angular ecosystem is supporting the developers, but I would like to embrace or motivate the developers who are in this call, who why I had to choose Angular, right? I wanted to give this talk. I mean, give this as a part of the talk so that you will certainly get why you need to choose one framework without being a developer. It's more about how you can build your passion, how you can build your reputation and things like that. So if you take me back in 2010, I started with AngularJS. I think this is one of the things that I wanted to present in this particular session. So I mean, back in 2010, when I started with AngularJS with one of the industry project, right? This is not a university project or something. So I got the opportunity to explore the features of AngularJS. That time, if JavaScript was Greek to me, right? I didn't know any concepts. Even I didn't know what is closure, what is promise, and things like that. So it helped me to understand the certain concepts of JavaScript when I started with AngularJS, right? And then I started to learn AngularJS by contributing to open source. So I built some libraries, and then I started answering questions on Stack Overflow. By 2015, I came to a certain level. There are certain famous users on AngularJS. I was one among them. So I had that reputation with AngularJS where I wanted to continue when Angular was introduced. So even when Angular was introduced, I thought that this is totally different framework. I should not spend time. But eventually, when I worked in some of the projects in my previous companies, I wanted to be, continuing with that particular technology. So I explored things. Back in 2018, I became a Google Develop Expert on Angular and also a top contributor on Stack Overflow by answering questions on Angular. I have done more than 18 sessions with 230 repositories on Stack Fleet, and then it motivated me to do more, right? So, I mean, I wanted other fellow developers to start using Angular, so we started this conference, and then I met the Angular team back in 2019, where it was a great experience to work with the core developer team to give the feedback and get to know what is coming in the roadmap. And then and then right now I'm working on a couple of books, and also I became the top 4 contributors on Angular. And then I'm aiming to produce 2 more GDs from Sri Lanka. So if you want to become a GD, I'm already having conversation with few. But if you get interested in Angular, or want to become a GD, you can always talk to me. I will be available to mentor you. So you can see that, right? It's not about the what framework provides. It's more about the passion you have. It's more about the love you have with that particular technology to become an expert on that particular I'm not calling myself expert, but certainly if you ask, if someone asks me what is my identity, I would certainly say Angular is my identity. And right now I'm building my capabilities on Azure, which is one of the cloud uh, you know uh, uh, vendor, I mean. And then if you have to, I explain why I choose Angular, but these are the reasons, right? I wanted to give a quick summary of why I choose Angular, because this is very relevant for the uh, the participants in this call. So I will quickly jump into these details. I have 10 more minutes, I think. Yes, if you all have a screwdriver, right, then you will look at all the problems as like a screws, right? Then you will think about that particular problem only. You won't have a broad mindset of fixing different things, right? So, but when you're provided with something like Angular, which provides a toolbox with different things that I explained, right? With Angular CLI, and then with schematics, with libraries, then you have the capability to support or build new features. I think this is one of the lacking thing that developers forget to understand about Angular. Angular is not just a framework; it's ecosystem for providing any support for building your front-end application. So you could think of building libraries, which is not a part of Angular. You could think of creating your own schematics in order to make your development faster. You could think of creating Angular elements which can be loaded into other frameworks as well. So these are some of the unique features that Angular provides, which I wanted to highlight in this particular call. If you are a beginner on Angular, or if you don't like Angular as a framework, right? Uh, and then, yes, it supports native application development. It supports web application development. It supports hybrid application development. So this is how my code looks like back in 2008, where I used to write thousands, 2000s of line by, binding the, by doing the bindings in my code level. But Angular provides a structured way to structure your code, and then you can do static analysis. That is one of the great features, so that you can immediately deploy the code to production while you are doing the development, right? That is the greatest feature or capability that TypeScript provides. So you can do the static analysis, and then developers don't have the tendency to make mistake. That is the great feature that I love on Angular. So when you think of, I talked about features, I think there are some other things that involves as well, which you could think of developer tooling, right? VS Code has different extensions supported for Angular, which you can explore in order to develop things quickly. So these are some of the things that you need to have in mind. But if you ask me when is Angular most suitable for your development, this is one of the things, right? I think you can read about this particular uh, highlight which came around recently. I think this was one of the famous company. I chose Angular because together we make a great team. I think that is one of the core factor. I think it's not about the core, Angular team who is working on it. It's about the community who is helping the framework to build more and more. It provides a fully fledged platform that takes care of non-functional requirement. That is the highlighting factor, right? It's not about building something which your client requests. I think you can achieve, I think with these modern technologies, you can build anything what you want with any framework, right? It's not about building features. It's about supporting the non-functional requirements such as compatibility, maintainability, testability. I think if you are providing uh, applications to your end users, these are the three things which Microsoft says as the top things that you need to consider, right? I think most of these terms are applicable to cloud as well, but when you think of designing an application, you have to think of reusability, availability, maintainability. I think Angular provides a greater support when you think of in these terms, right? So if you are working in a large environment where it comprises of thousands of developers, where you don't have the common code of conduct in order to write or structure your code, Angular provides the best way to do that with libraries, schematics, and then it provides a way to structure your component where developers don't have to make any mistakes. I think this is a great feature that is supported by Angular. Um, and then these are the reasons that clients come up with, right? I don't want to refactor these applications again in 6 months. This is again supported with Angular. There is a tool that is provided by the Angular team, which is called the ng update. So if you want to update certain features which were missed in the previous Angular version, you can do a simple update. And then you don't have to write the same code if you want to replicate in particular devices. You can build once and then deploy across devices. And then Angular is, this is a one-stop shop which you can use, angular.io, which is a great example of Angular application, because which is built on latest version of Angular 11, and is using Angular Material as the design framework. And then it is supporting mobile toolkit as well. You can access from mobile. It is also a progressive web application which you can access offline. And then you can explore different stylings, guidelines, and things like that. Again, CLI I talked about, which is another added advantage for Angular developers in order to build things quickly. And then if you want to refactor components quickly, you can use something like schematics. When you're creating large application, I think schematics provide a way to have a common standards. So if you want to, if you don't want to replicate some of the components, you can create particular schematic which comprises of services components, and then you can distribute that schematics with your developers. That is a great feature. And then Angular Material, I think most of you are familiar with this particular framework. It is also by Google, which is a UI component design guidelines for mobile and the desktop for Angular web application, and you can use. And another advantage is that observable, right? Without observable, there is no Angular application, right? Yeah, I mean, it provides a support for passing messages between your component and also between services and component. These are frequently used in Angular, and also it's a recommended technique for event handling, asynchronous programming, and also to handle multiple values, where things like you can subscribe, map, and do things like filter. I think there are nearly 82 capabilities which are provided. You can go ahead and explore, right? Again, for developer friendliness, I talked about. And then I8 internationalization support, right? So Angular has a built-in support for internalization. You don't have to go for third-party provider in order to provide localization and internalization. You can include this II8N library in order to provide support for internalization. And then performance, you can achieve great performance by implementing these with Angular. I think we have source map explorer built in with Angular CLI. You can just enable and then go through how each of the bundle size performs, right? So if you have certain components in large bundle size, you can reduce that component by analyzing the source map explorer. Also, with the addition of IV, you can have the great experience for the end users with the lazy loading and things like that. This is a great message from the Angular team. Everyone asks for SLA when you are talking about cloud services, but Angular team itself confirmed that there is a long-term support enabled for Angular users, which assures that Angular will exist for more years. And since there are 600 plus applications which are written on Angular, which is confirmed by Steve Flynn, who is the dev relations lead for Angular team, right? Uh, if I have to talk about when Angular is not ideal, I think I talked about different features, right? These are overwhelming for beginners, right? So when you hear about different things, you might get confused. I think that is one of the disadvantage thing that Angular has, because you need to know these concepts in order to understand the capabilities of this particular framework. I think that is one of the disadvantage. And the second thing is that learning curve, right? Angular has the steep learning curve compared to other frameworks. It takes time, but once you understood the concepts, I think you will love Angular as a framework. I hope I covered most of the things related to Angular, but since I have been working with Angular for a long time, you need to I would like to give this advice, top 10 advices to the beginners who are in this call. I will quickly go through, I won't take much time. First, you need to understand the big picture of the application that you are building, right? You can't decide a framework immediately, which you feel you might easier for you to do the development. It's more about satisfying the non-functional requirement as well. So you need to understand the big picture of the application that you're building. And then if you're an Angular developer, I would highly recommend you to read the TypeScript handbook, which is available public, on how to handle things with the TypeScript approach. And the third thing, play around with RxJS. If you have listened to the NG Sri Lanka recent talk, where Deborah Crota, she's one of the expert on RxJS, she gave a talk on RxJS. Just go ahead and explore. And there is a wonderful plural site course available on RxJS on how to handle observables with different JavaScript frameworks. And then advice 4, follow the smart people. Yes, smart in the sense, not in the look wise. You can see myself here, right? And then there are n number of GDs who are available in this particular site. You can go ahead and start exploring what they are doing. And then one of the key important thing is, without building application, you can't really compare a framework, or you can't really understand the benefits of particular framework. So start creating the application from today. As a fresher, you need to contribute to good GitHub, right? GitHub is a great way to show your presence. Start doing that. And the other thing, I think most of the Sri Lankans who are very shy start giving talk. So when I started my talk, I was very nervous, but feel free. I mean, you need to start doing something from the beginning, right? You can't achieve something without doing anything. So you need to start at least a talk uh, in each of the meetups. So you can reach out to me if you want to present something on any of the meetups. I'm there to support. And then write the article. So if you're not convenient to do talks, write an article, write a blog post, and then once you do that, you will eventually have a chance to attend international events. Like that is one of the key learning. And then final advice: if you have anything, you can call me, irrespective of the Angular, irrespective of things. I would love to support fellow developers. So if you have any problems, or I mean, in terms of development, right, I would try to support you by bringing the right people to help to solve your issues. So these are the 10 advices that I wanted to give. Let me quickly show the demo. I think I will take 3 more minutes, right? What I have in local machine. So this is the application that I showed. So as you can see, this is the Angular application. And then I have the component, which is a single component that I have here, right? So you can see there's a simple for loop, which I am using ng4 in order to display the votes. And then if I go back to modules, you can see some of the modules that I am using. One of the things that I talked about is the HTTP client module. In order to access the SignalR service, in order to get the real-time updates, I'm using SignalR service here. And if I go to service, you can see how I am talking to different endpoints. So in order to get the votes, I'm making a call to this particular CRUD API, and then I'm getting the votes, right? And then if I go to the component code, it's a real-time application, right? So I need to initiate the connection to SignalR, where you can see the SignalR connection, and then and then I'm retrieving the votes, right? So whenever user adds a votes, it's called a CRUD API. It adds to the backend. So this is a simple application. Let me go ahead and run this application in order to show how the real-time capability is performed. So you can npm start. So one of the recent features that Angular team added is that you can visualize the bundle size in a table format. I think this was released in the recent version. This makes most of the developers to see, the clear view of the each files, right? So it might take a couple of minutes, but let me go ahead and see if there are any questions I can take off, or we can keep it at the end. I will take 5 more minutes. Is it true that Angular will kill? Okay. I will take the questions after this session, but let me show the demo and end this talk since other speakers are waiting. Whenever I do real demos, this happens, right? My machine becomes slow or either it takes time to build the application. Yeah, the application is up. So let me open the application. So by default, you will be able to access the application. So there are 4 people who have voted as of now, which is in real time. But one of the thing that I want to demonstrate is that real-time capability, right? So if I vote here and say, if another user is opening this application, he would be able to see the latest update. So if I, sorry, I think I voted for view. I know it's messy with, the CSS, but you can see the feature, right? It gets updated in real time. So that's a feature I wanted to show. Again, it's using Signaler as the backend service. Again, you can build real-time application using WebSockets with Angular, but you can explore. But the core understanding is that these are the core components. There is a module, there is a service, there is a component, and then you can simply spin up your Angular application. Yes, I think the demo went smoothly. And then if you're starting with Angular, these are the required knowledge that you need to have. So you need to thoroughly understand how TypeScript works, and then what is RxJS. You need to understand component device. When you need to choose components, those are the key things that you need to understand, before starting your Angular application. Yes, I don't want to recommend any frameworks, but if you are a JavaScript fan, keep learning. The frameworks will evolve. The frameworks will move away, but the core basics will remain the same. So you can ask the questions in the chat window. I will take up those questions even at the end. But these are some of the things, right? So if you want to reach out to me, I'm available on Facebook or Twitter. You can reach out to me. This is a wrong link from the yesterday's talk, but avoid that. You can access the slides from here, and then demo application is available here. And then follow NG Sri Lanka, which is one of the Angular conference that we organize. And then, yes, follow me too. I hope the session was useful. I hope you got something from the session. Please give a round of virtual applause to me, and you can, reply on the chat if you want to give a feedback. I hope you enjoyed the session. We can go forward with the session from Dhanushka. Thanks a lot. I will again join the, panel discussion. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much, Sajeetharan, for sharing your fantastic knowledge on Angular framework with us. I guess our audience may still have plenty of questions to ask from you. Guys, you can still post questions to the link we have provided. So, Sajeetharan, I hope you will stay connected with us till the end for the Q&A session as well. Okay, next, Dhanushka Chandana from Facebook Developer Circle. He's ready to share his knowledge and hands-on experience on React framework. Guys, I repeat again, don't forget to post your questions also on React framework to the link we have provided.